My name is Catherine, and I'm 24 years old. 2 years ago, I stood in the courthouse holding papers that would change my family forever. I never thought I'd be the daughter who evicted her own parents. But sometimes life forces you to choose between being kind and being respected. The day I discovered my college fund was gone started like any other Tuesday morning. I was stirring my coffee when my phone buzzed with a notification from my savings account. The balance showed $0. My heart dropped into my stomach like a stone thrown into deep water. I'd been saving for graduate school applications. Every dollar from my part-time job at the campus bookstore went into that account. 4 years of careful budgeting and sacrifice. 4 years of saying no to spring break trips and designer clothes my friends wore effortlessly. The money wasn't just gone. It had been transferred to another account with my brother Tyler's name on it. My hands shook as I called the bank. The representative confirmed my worst fears. My parents had co-signed the account when I was 17. They still had access. I drove to my childhood home with rage burning in my chest like swallowed fire. The familiar yellow house with its white picket fence looked different somehow. Smaller. Less welcoming. The garden my mother tended every summer seemed overgrown and neglected. My mother answered the door wearing her favorite blue apron. She smiled until she saw my face. Then her expression shifted to something I'd never seen before. Guilt mixed with defiance. Like a child caught stealing cookies but refusing to put them back. "Catherine, honey, come in. I was just making your father's favorite casserole." "Where's my money, Mom?" The words hung in the air between us like smoke from a fire that wouldn't die. She looked away toward the kitchen where pots were clattering. Dad's voice drifted from his office where he worked from home. Everything seemed normal, except nothing was normal anymore. "Your brother needed it more than you did. Tyler's starting his business. You can always get student loans." Student loans. As if debt was a gift I should be grateful to receive. As if watching my brother fail at 3 previous business ventures wasn't enough evidence that this was throwing good money after bad. Tyler walked into the room at that moment. He looked exactly like our father at 26. Same confident smile that never quite reached his eyes. Same way of taking up space in a room without saying a word. He was wearing a new leather jacket. That probably cost more than I made in a month. "Hey, Kat, thanks for the loan. I'll pay you back with interest when the business takes off." Loan. He called it a loan like I'd agreed to this arrangement. Like my 4 years of sacrifice meant nothing. Like my dreams were negotiable while his were sacred. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you are viewing from. Before I tell you about this life-changing decision, hit like and subscribe to hear more real stories about family loyalty and betrayal that might just change how you see your own relationships. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at my childhood ceiling where glow-in-the-dark stars still formed constellations I'd memorized years ago. The Big Dipper. Orion's Belt. Each star represented a dream I'd had about my future. About graduate school and the career I'd planned since high school. My parents had taught me that family comes first. They'd drilled it into my head that blood is thicker than water, but they'd never explained what happens when family becomes the source of your drowning instead of your salvation. I thought about all the times I'd covered for Tyler, the lies I'd told teachers when he skipped school, the money I'd lent him that never came back, the way I'd smiled and nodded when everyone praised him for his potential while treating my actual achievements like background music. Something shifted in my chest that night. A door that had been slowly closing finally clicked shut. I wasn't going to be the good daughter anymore. The one who sacrificed everything while everyone else took what they wanted. By morning, I'd made a decision that would shock everyone who thought they knew me, including myself. To understand what happened next, you need to know about my family. We weren't poor growing up. Dad worked as an accountant for a mid-sized firm downtown. Mom taught elementary school until Tyler was born, then became a stay-at-home parent who volunteered for every school committee and church fundraiser. From the outside, we looked perfect. The kind of family that appears in Christmas card photos with matching sweaters and genuine smiles, but perfection is often just careful presentation hiding complicated truths. Tyler was born when I was 2 years old. I barely remember life before him, but I remember the shift. Suddenly, every conversation revolved around what Tyler needed, what Tyler wanted, how brilliant Tyler was going to be someday. He walked late, talked late, and struggled in school from kindergarten onward. But instead of getting help, my parents created explanations. Tyler was too creative for traditional education, too smart to be bothered with busy work, too special for ordinary expectations. Meanwhile, I was the easy child. I brought home report cards full of A's that got stuck on the refrigerator for exactly 1 week before being replaced by Tyler's latest participation trophy. I won spelling bees and science fairs that my parents attended with polite applause while saving their standing ovations for Tyler's soccer games, where he scored maybe twice per season. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Like you could disappear and it would take days for anyone to notice? That was my childhood. Not neglected exactly, but constantly overshadowed by someone who demanded more attention, more resources, more forgiveness. When I was 16, I started working at the local ice cream shop. Not because we needed money, but because I wanted something that was mine. My own schedule, my own boss, my own paycheck. For the first time, my effort directly correlated to my reward. Tyler quit 3 jobs that same year. Too boring, too demanding, too beneath someone with his potential. Each time, Mom and Dad nodded sympathetically and assured him something better would come along. Something worthy of his unique talents. I saved every dollar I earned. Not just for college, but for freedom. Freedom from being the backup plan, the reliable one. The daughter who could be counted on to understand when resources went elsewhere. My parents started the college fund when I turned 17. They made a big show of it, a special bank account in both our names. They promised to match every dollar I contributed. For 6 months, they kept that promise. Then Tyler needed a car. Then Tyler needed help with rent. Then Tyler needed startup money for his first business. The matching contributions stopped, but I kept saving. Even when my friends went to movies, I stayed home and studied. Even when everyone else got cars for their 18th birthday, I rode the bus and saved the insurance money. Even when I could have taken easier classes, I challenged myself because I knew my grades would determine my scholarship opportunities. College was different. Away from family dynamics, I discovered who I could be when I wasn't defined by being Tyler's responsible older sister. I made friends who valued my opinions. I dated guys who called when they said they would. I joined clubs where my contributions mattered. I studied business with a focus on nonprofit management. While my classmates partied, I volunteered at local charities and learned how organizations actually function. I wanted to build something meaningful, something that helped people, instead of just taking from them. Every semester when tuition was due, I felt proud transferring money from my savings account. This was my investment in my future, my proof that hard work and sacrifice pay off eventually. During winter break my junior year, Tyler announced his latest business idea. Some kind of app that would revolutionize how people find restaurants. He had no experience in app development, no business plan, no market research. But he had enthusiasm, and our parents' unwavering faith in his inevitable success. I watched them discuss his funding needs over dinner like they were planning a family vacation. Tyler needed $20,000 to get started. He was sure he'd be able to pay everyone back within 6 months. This time was different. This time he had a real plan. I didn't say anything, but something cold settled in my stomach. A feeling like watching storm clouds gather while everyone else admired the sunset. The weeks after discovering my empty account were a masterclass in family manipulation. Every conversation became an opportunity for my parents to explain why I was overreacting. Why Tyler deserved this chance more than I deserved my money. You're so capable, Catherine. You'll find a way. Tyler needs more help right now. More help. As if the previous 26 years of constant support hadn't been enough. As if my capability was a reason to punish me rather than reward me. I started researching. Not just about getting my money back, but about my family's financial situation. What I discovered made my blood run cold. Our house had been in my grandmother's name until she died 5 years ago. She'd left it to me and Tyler equally in her will. But somehow, only my parents' names were on the current deed. My grandmother had specifically wanted her grandchildren to inherit her house. She'd told me this many times while she was alive. She wanted to make sure we had something solid to build our futures on. She'd grown up poor and knew how much security meant. I drove to the county courthouse on my lunch break. The records were public. For $15, I could trace exactly what had happened to my inheritance. My hands shook as I read through legal documents that painted a clear picture of deception. After Grandma died, my parents had convinced Tyler and me to sign papers to make the estate settlement easier. They said it was just paperwork, just a formality so they could handle the property taxes and maintenance until we were both established. Adults. We'd signed over our inheritance without understanding what we were doing. I was 19 and trusted my parents completely. Tyler was 17 and trusted everyone completely. Neither of us had read the fine print that transferred our ownership to our parents permanently. Do you have parents who used your trust against you? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes talking about these experiences helps us realize we're not alone. I sat in my car outside the courthouse for an hour, staring at those papers. My grandmother's house was worth approximately $400,000. Tyler and I should have inherited $200,000 each. Instead, our parents now owned property we'd paid for with our trust. But here's where the story gets interesting. My grandmother hadn't just been sentimental about that house. She'd been strategic. The documents showed she'd also left detailed instructions about what should happen if anyone tried to cheat her grandchildren out of their inheritance. There was a clause, a legal clause that said, if Tyler or I could prove our parents had acted against our financial interests while holding our inheritance, the property would revert back to us completely, not just our original shares, the entire house. I spent the next 3 days reading every legal document I could find online. I learned about fiduciary duty, about financial exploitation, about the legal rights of adult children when parents misuse inherited property as collateral for their own financial decisions, because that's what had happened. My parents had taken out a second mortgage on Grandma's house to pay for Tyler's previous business ventures. They'd risked property that wasn't legally theirs to risk. They'd gambled with our inheritance and lost. My phone buzzed constantly during this research period. Tyler wanting to meet for coffee to talk things through. Mom calling to invite me for Sunday dinner like nothing had changed. Dad sending texts about how family needs to stick together during difficult times. I ignored all of them. For the first time in my life, I was putting my needs first. Learning what my options were before anyone could pressure me into forgiveness. I wasn't ready to give. The legal consultation cost me $200 I couldn't afford, but the lawyer's words were worth every penny. Yes, I had a case. Yes, my parents had violated their fiduciary duty. Yes, the clause in my grandmother's will was enforceable. You could own that house free and clear, she said. Your grandmother was smarter than your parents gave her credit for. Walking out of that law office, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Power. Not the kind that comes from hurting people, but the kind that comes from having choices, from not being helpless anymore. That night I called my best friend from college, Sarah. I told her everything, the missing money, the stolen inheritance, the legal options I'd discovered. She listened without judgment, then asked the question I'd been avoiding. "What are you going to do, Kat?" I stared at my reflection in my apartment window. The girl looking back at me wasn't the same person who'd discovered the empty bank account 2 weeks ago. This girl looked harder, more determined, ready to fight. I decided to give them one chance, one opportunity to make things right before I changed all our lives forever. Sunday dinner seemed like the appropriate setting for what might be our family's last peaceful meal together. Mom had made pot roast, Tyler's favorite. The dining room smelled like home and childhood and all the memories I was about to complicate permanently. Dad carved the meat while Mom fussed over side dishes, and Tyler scrolled through his phone, probably checking his latest business social media accounts. "I want to discuss the money," I said after we'd started eating. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees immediately. Mom's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Dad stopped chewing and looked at Tyler like they'd rehearsed this moment. "Catherine, we've been through this. Tyler needs to get a job," I interrupted. "I need you to return my money by Friday or I'm taking legal action." Tyler laughed. Actually laughed out loud like I'd told a joke instead of delivered an ultimatum. "Legal action? Seriously, Kat? Over what? Like $8,000? $12,437? Plus interest." The exact amount mattered. It represented 4 years of saying no to things I wanted. 4 years of choosing my future over immediate gratification. 4 years they'd dismissed as easily replaceable with student loan debt. "Honey, you can't sue family," Mom said in her gentle teacher voice, the one she used when explaining basic concepts to slow students. "That's not how we handle disagreements." "You're right, Mom. This isn't a disagreement. This is theft." Dad set down his fork with more force than necessary. "Now you listen here, young lady. Everything we've done has been for this family's best interests. Tyler's business could make us all wealthy. Your education is guaranteed either way. Guaranteed. As if crushing debt was equivalent to the financial freedom I'd worked to achieve. As if my dreams mattered less because I was capable of adapting to disappointment. "What about Grandma's house?" I asked quietly. The silence that followed was louder than shouting. Tyler looked confused, but my parents' faces went pale. They knew exactly what I meant. "What about it?" Dad asked carefully. "You used it as collateral for Tyler's failed businesses. You took out loans against property that legally belonged to me and Tyler. You violated the terms of Grandma's will." Mom's hand flew to her chest like I'd physically struck her. "Catherine Rose, your grandmother wanted us to take care of that house. She trusted us to make good decisions. She trusted you to protect our inheritance, not gamble it away on Tyler's fantasies." Tyler finally looked up from his phone, sensing the conversation had shifted to something that actually affected him. "What are you talking about? What inheritance?" I pulled out copies of the legal documents I'd obtained, spread them across the table between the serving dishes like evidence in a courtroom. Grandma left the house to both of us, $200,000 each. Mom and Dad convinced us to sign it over to them when we were teenagers. Tyler's face went through several expressions as he processed this information. Confusion gave way to understanding, then to something like anger. For the first time in years, we were on the same side of a family issue. "You told us it was just paperwork," he said to our parents. "It was just paperwork," Dad insisted. "We were protecting the property until you were both mature enough to handle that kind of responsibility." "By using it to fund Tyler's businesses?" I asked. How is that protection? The room fell silent except for the ticking of Mom's antique clock, the same clock that had counted minutes during countless family dinners where I'd bitten my tongue instead of speaking my truth. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, my voice steadier than I felt. You're going to return my college fund money by Friday. All of it, plus interest for the months you've had it. And you're going to transfer the house back to Tyler. And me like Grandma intended. And if we don't? Dad asked, his accountant brain already calculating the financial implications. I looked around the table at faces I'd loved my entire life. Faces that suddenly looked like strangers wearing familiar masks. Then I invoked the clause in Grandma's will, the one that gives me sole ownership of the house if you've misused your fiduciary authority. Tyler's eyes widened as the implications hit him. Sole ownership? Grandma was smarter than any of us realized. She knew family money could cause problems, so she built in protections. If you've ever had to choose between being family peace and standing up for yourself, let me know in the comments. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones we fight with people we love. Friday came and went without a phone call, without a check, without any acknowledgement that my ultimatum existed at all. I spent the weekend staring at my phone, hoping family love would triumph over family greed. It didn't. Monday morning, I filed the lawsuit. Walking into that law office with my grandmother's will and bank records felt like stepping off a cliff into free fall. There would be no going back to Sunday dinners and birthday celebrations once I signed those papers. The legal process moved faster than I expected. My grandmother's lawyer had been thorough when writing her will. Every contingency was covered. Every loophole closed. My parents had violated their fiduciary duty in multiple, well-documented ways. The house was mine within 90 days. Tyler called me exactly once during the legal proceedings. He was angry, confused, and hurt in ways I recognized because I'd felt them too. But his anger was directed at me instead of our parents. I was the one breaking up the family. I was the one being selfish and vindictive. I would have split the money with you, he said during our last conversation. You didn't have to take everything. But he wouldn't have. Tyler had never shared anything willingly in his entire life. He was angry because for the first time, his charm and potential couldn't save him from consequences. The hardest part wasn't the legal battles or the money stress. It was the loneliness. 24 years of family conditioning doesn't disappear overnight. I'd wake up wanting to call my mom about random things. I'd see something funny and reach for my phone to text Tyler before remembering we weren't speaking. My extended family chose sides predictably. Aunts and uncles who'd watched me be overlooked for years suddenly had opinions about family loyalty and forgiveness. Cousins who'd never called before left voicemails about how disappointed Grandma would be. But some people surprised me. My grandmother's sister, Great Aunt Helen, called 3 weeks after I won the case. She was 87 and sharp as a tack. Your grandmother would be proud, she said without preamble. She always worried your parents spoiled that boy and took you for granted. Great Aunt Helen had stories I'd never heard. About how my grandmother had worked 2 jobs to keep her house during the Depression. About how she'd refused to let anyone, including her own children, take advantage of her kindness. About how she'd specifically designed her will to protect me and Tyler from exactly what had happened. She saw your character early, Helen told me. Said you were the one who'd appreciate what that house represented. Financial security earned through honest work. 6 months after winning the case, I made the decision that changed everything again. I evicted my parents. They'd been living in the house for 5 years without paying market rent. They'd been using the property as collateral for loans they couldn't afford. They'd been treating my inheritance like their retirement plan while telling me I was selfish for wanting my own money. The eviction notice felt like swallowing broken glass, but watching them pack their belongings felt like breathing clearly, for the first time in years. Tyler helped them move. He still wasn't speaking to me, but he called our aunt to tell her how heartless I'd become, how I'd chosen money over family, how Grandma would be ashamed of what I'd done to her house. Maybe she would be ashamed. Maybe family is supposed to forgive everything, sacrifice everything, enable everything in the name of love. Maybe I was supposed to keep being the daughter who made everyone else's life easier at the expense of my own, but sitting in my inherited house that first night alone, I felt something I'd never experienced before. Peace. The kind that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. 1 year later, I was approved for graduate school. Full scholarship based on my undergraduate grades and volunteer work. No student loans needed because I had my college fund back, plus interest, plus a house that was appreciating in value, plus the knowledge that I could trust myself to make hard decisions. I rented out 2 of the bedrooms to graduate students. Quiet, respectful people who paid their rent on time and treated my grandmother's house with care. People who understood that home is something you earn, not something you're entitled to. Have you ever had to choose between family peace and your own future? Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable destructive patterns. Today, I'm 26 years old and finishing my master's degree in nonprofit administration. I live in my grandmother's house, which I've slowly restored to honor both her memory and my own vision for my future. The garden blooms again. The kitchen feeds people who appreciate the meal instead of demanding it. My relationship with my family is complicated. That's the honest answer when people ask. Tyler and I exchange birthday cards now, polite but distant. He moved back in with our parents in their rental apartment. His latest business failed, like all the others. But he's talking about new ideas. Some patterns never change. My parents and I speak maybe once every few months. Careful conversations about weather and work that avoid any mention of money, houses, or legal proceedings. Mom still sends Christmas cards addressed to Catherine Rose in her perfect teacher handwriting. Dad still believes I overreacted to what he calls a family misunderstanding. But I've learned something important over these past 2 years. Family isn't just about blood relations or shared history. It's about mutual respect, genuine support, and reciprocal care. Some of my strongest family relationships now are with people who share my values instead of my DNA. Great Aunt Helen visits twice a month. We drink tea in my grandmother's kitchen and talk about everything from politics to recipes to the romance novels she still reads voraciously. She's become the maternal figure I needed without the emotional manipulation I'd grown accustomed to. My graduate school friends have become chosen family too. People who celebrate my successes without expecting me to downplay them for someone else's comfort. People who support my dreams without treating them as negotiable for someone else's benefit. The hardest lesson I learned was about enabling versus helping. I thought being a good daughter meant sacrificing my needs for everyone else's wants. I thought love meant accepting unfair treatment without complaint. I thought family loyalty meant never saying no, never setting boundaries, never protecting my own interests. Now I understand that real love sometimes requires difficult conversations. That healthy relationships need mutual respect. That enabling destructive behavior isn't kindness. It's cowardice disguised as virtue. I volunteer at a financial literacy nonprofit now. I teach young adults about budgeting, saving, and protecting their financial futures. I see myself in every 18-year-old who doesn't understand how bank accounts work. Every 20-something who's never learned to say no to family financial requests. The irony isn't lost on me that Tyler's failed business ventures taught me exactly what kind of work I wanted to do. His financial irresponsibility showed me how much I valued financial stability. His expectation of endless second chances taught me the importance of natural consequences. If you're watching this and recognizing patterns in your own family, please know that you're not alone. Setting boundaries doesn't make you selfish. Protecting your future doesn't make you heartless. Refusing to enable destructive behavior doesn't make you the villain. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop participating in dynamics that hurt everyone involved. Sometimes family healing requires one person being brave enough to say, "This isn't working anymore. I won't pretend it's easy." 2 years later, I still have moments of doubt. Days when I wonder if I should have handled things differently. Nights when I miss the illusion of family harmony we maintained by never addressing real problems. But then I look around my grandmother's house, which is now my house, and I remember why I fought for it. Not just for the financial security, though that matters. Not just to prove a point, though that felt necessary at the time. I fought for it because it represents something my grandmother understood that my parents never did. That love isn't just what you give. It's also what you're willing to protect. That family isn't just about loyalty. It's also about justice. That home isn't just a place. It's the foundation you build everything else on. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have fought for your inheritance or kept the family peace? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit like and subscribe for more real stories about family, money, and the difficult decisions we sometimes have to make to protect our futures. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to put themselves first sometimes. Your dreams matter. Your financial security matters. Your peace of mind matters. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise, even if they share your last name. Sometimes, the best way to honor your family is to become the person you needed them to be.